recording, and then I am now working on putting this on Facebook Live. Once we are ready to go, I will go ahead and mute and just put a little comment in the chat, letting you guys know you can
That's
start.
lighting for me. So.
I just want to let the good Reverend know that my image is copyrighted, so you're going to have to pay for.
Look, I was scared to ask all y'all because I'm like, these guys copyright, you know.
I don't even send a picture out when they ask me. I'm going to another church and say, we need a picture. Like, what for? You'll see what I look like when I get there.
So, Krista, you're going to let me know when we live, right?
Yeah, it's just a couple things I have to put in the video notes before I can go live.
Okay. So, yeah. I know y'all probably had time to read the questions. There was so many questions on my mind that I wanted to ask you all and just your perspective. And so we're going to get to that. And then sooner or later, somewhere in the end on the 4-part series, we may bring you back. And I plan on having some Caucasian brothers and sisters on. So that's going to be very interesting.
Okay, I am ready to press the button to go live. So we're going to do that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're live, right?
We're live.
Yep. Look, I'm so excited. It's 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It is 6 o'clock here in Texas. And elsewhere, I'm sure it's a little later, you know, hour, 2 hours behind us in California or so. And if you're on, you know, this is just an exciting time to have so many diverse brothers here with me tonight. So I'm Reverend John M. Sellers of JMS Ministries, civil rights activist and social activist. And I was thinking about what's going on in America today and what's happening exactly right now as we look at the riots and looting and what's taking place right now and in Minneapolis, not in just Minneapolis, what just happened when we look at Ahmaud Arbery and also Breonna Taylor. We look at those and we see those situations going on and some of us are fed up, whether you're a Christian, whether you're not a Christian, whether you're African American, whether you're white, we are fed up. So I decided that I'm gonna ask a bunch of brothers, these brothers, distinguished men, to hey, let's have a frank conversation. Bro, what's really going on in this segment? What's really going on? It's a frank conversation between some African American men who are very prominent in their field. So if you would, I wanna, you know, I call you out, and I'm gonna take, if you would, take a few minutes, a few sentences, just to introduce yourself. Kareem, you go first.
Okay, my name is Kareem Abdullah. I'm an owner of a consulting company here in Maryland. I am a pissed off black man. That's all I can say right now.
Derek Anderson.
Good evening, Derek Anderson, out of Charlotte, North Carolina. As Kareem talked about, I'm frustrated as well.
Chuck, I'm gonna save you for last. Reverend Lee, go ahead, brother.
I'm Samuel Ross Lee. That's a last name, Ross Lee. I'm the pastor of the Emmanuel Baptist Church here in New Haven, Connecticut. And I've been pissed off. This is not new for me.
Okay. Brother Tucker.
My name is Terrence Tucker, proud black man and founder of the Tuck Project, male mentor nonprofit. We've been in business going on 4 years now. Right now we have 200 young men right now 205 young men that's in my program right now.
Okay, great. And sometime in the program we'll have Chevron Scott, who's practicing attorney out of Florence, South Carolina. He'll join us sooner or later if he's on. Chevron, are you on? So he may not be on right now, but he'll be joining us in this conversation. So you heard these gentlemen introduce themselves, and when we're done, you know, we'll share our information if you want to contact us, and we're going to continue this conversation. However, we want to start this conversation off with this. Derek, I want to start with you if you don't mind. Define racism in your own terms.
One of the things that many people know that racism and race is a social construct. However, because of the work that I do as it relates to racial equity, racial justice, one of the definitions that centers me is through one of our partners through Racial Equity Institute. And it's really defined racism as social and institutional power combined with race prejudice. And it's like a system of advantage for those who are considered white and of oppression for those who are not considered white. And so when we think about this whole notion around racism, institutional racism, it's a system of advantage that provides advantage to whites and is disadvantage to people of color. And so that's kind of been rooted in our work and definition of how we define more around racism and institutional racism.
Oh, well, you all better, if you're listening to this Facebook Live at this moment, you need to be taking notes so you can share with those around you. We all know we have a definition of racism, but it may be somebody that's listening that may not know. That's why we're asking these brothers, what is racism to you? Reverend Lee, Ross Lee.
I actually keep it simple. I think it is a belief in superiority of one race over another. I think it's American racism is mainly white people oppressing Black people based on race. But in terms of the general definition, I keep it simple. It's a belief in your racial superiority.
That's good. It's almost like something from God of the Oppressed by James Cone almost. You mentioned the oppressor. So earlier today, I think I said something to the nature of the oppressor cannot tell the oppressed how to protest.
No.
So when you hear that, you're like, bruh, you can't tell us how to protest when it's not in our favor right now, when we're hurting or something like that. Terrence Tucker, come on. Define racism in your terms?
White supremacy. That's racism to me. My young men being killed for no reason, that's racism to me. Me being stereotyped, that's racism. You know what I mean? To me, that's my that's my opinion of it all, because that's all we see.
Okay.
Day in and day out.
Kareem?
So racism to me, there's not a day I don't love being a man of color. All right. I think that right there is a whole lot of power. Racism to me is when someone uses their race knowing they have the privilege to use that power and get away with it. And that is what we deal with in so many different ways each and every day. That's just basically what it means.
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure if Chevron came on. Attorney Scott, you on or not? If not, we're going to move forward. No? Okay, so, so we got definitions. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different, 4 different definitions of racism. So my next question to you, have you ever experienced racism firsthand? And I want to hear flat out how this thing went, a quick synopsis of, look, yeah, I experienced it. I know it's a crazy question. You all listening on here saying, man, he asking us, that's just profound. Yeah, he experienced it. We don't know. However, I'm asking these brothers firsthand, have you ever experienced and share a significant experience or a recent experience? So.
Well, a couple of years ago, me and my dad were driving to Florida to see my cousin, and we was on Highway 95, and we're driving, and this cop pulled us over, and we were not speeding, my windows wasn't tinted, you know what I mean, and so when he pulled us over, he told us to get out the car for no apparent reason, and they searched the whole car. Like, they searched my trunk. My dad, man, has been a reverend for almost 30 years. Okay, so you know, we know how to handle ourselves, right? We know how to conduct, you know, when we approach with those situations.
Right.
But the cop, man, just did not want to hear nothing we had to say. Matter of fact, he had like 4 different cops to actually pull over, man, because we got a rental car.
Right.
So they searched the trunk, man. They called the dog on dogs, right? Man, we were livid. But, you know, that's being black in America.
And I'm sure that experience, like, I mean, we all probably can, everybody's nodding on the video, and I'm sure they're nodding out in Facebook land. Give a thumbs up if you're hearing this, but, you know, we lived through that experience of getting stopped, and right now we're fearing getting stopped. And you know, those of you who have sons, you're trying to give your son direction on how to get stopped when you probably shouldn't have to in this climate. So, Derek,
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, a couple weeks ago, you know, my son just turned 14, right? And this was shortly after the Ahmaud shooting. And one of the things we were talking about is he was excited, looking forward to getting his permit, looking forward to driving. And I'm excited for him, but a sense of fear rose inside of me because he has no idea of things that he can't control simply because of his skin color. And then as we continue to think about that, not only with the experiences I had, the thing is, what is it we really do to protect our kids and our sons in terms of really giving them, like we call it, the talk, the information, the things that we have to continue to do in order they can be safe and come home. And help them understand that they're out there with the police is not the time to prove your case. It's not the time to justify if you're right or wrong. The ultimate goal is you to follow directions and go home. And that's for my son, any man, any black man, any man, period, son, uncle, brother. Because I think for any of us, it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with us simply doing what we need to do to get home, listening, following directions, and then living another day to then utilize the system in order to try to address it. And I think that's one of the things we have to think about. That's one thing I have to think about. And one of the things that I do know, I have a brother who's a police officer. I have friends who are police officers. There are a lot of great police officers out there. But also in any profession, you have those who also utilize their power to also continue to oppress. And so I think that we have to encourage our police officers to roll on their boards. We have to encourage our police officers to police the police. You know what I'm saying? And so I think we have the opportunity to be hopeful, but at the same time, we have to be safe. And being safe is really doing what we need to do to get home.
Right. And man, thank you for that perspective. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I love that part where you say, you know, honestly, we have to find somebody in a good policeman that's willing to roll on the police. You know, those who are willing to stand up and not be in the shadow of it. I think as we watched that video, and we all seen it, I'm assuming we all saw the video, and as we watched that video, we saw a policeman that was standing there, and I said to my wife that he is scared because he's scared of the brother in blue backlash, or what was gonna happen after if he went against his own people. He was scared of that. So thank you for that perspective. Kareem, let's go.
I'm gonna change it up. I can name numerous times I've been pulled over by the cop, pulled out of my car. I think one of the forms of racism that I deal with is white people asking me questions because I'm able to do the same things that you are financially. Okay? All right. You know, and that right there is one of the biggest shocks to them, that after 400 years of oppression, that there are people of color who are able to be in the same hotel as you are, you know, be on the, be in the same, plane, or class of service you are. And you get this question, what do you do for a living? Are you an athlete? Okay. Yes, 250 pounds. Look, my knees, I'm not an athlete, okay? I'm just somebody who works hard and just likes to have fun in life. I think that, that right there is one of the forms of, racism that I think we actually deal with daily.
Right. Reverend Ross Lee, I know you're still there. My brother, why don't you share with us, if you don't mind?
Well, I have to acknowledge that as a pastor in a relatively small town, people think of New Haven, they think of Yale, but New Haven is really not that big.
Right.
And it's even split because Yale is a whole nother reality in this city. We say that there's New Haven, there's Yale, New Haven, and there's, New Haven, Connecticut. So I'm a pastor in this town, and I'm known, I write, I speak, out on things, issues, that sort of thing. So I don't really have to deal with white people a lot, quite frankly, if I don't want to, and I try not to on a lot of occasions. I shop with Black people, obviously I work for Black people, so I don't really have to have that much encounter. However, I had a neighbor, she wasn't a next door neighbor, kind of down the street, white woman, who was literally harassing me. And I ignored her for a long time. And it just started getting annoying. It's kind of like somebody's, scratching after a while, it starts getting annoying. And I realized what she was trying to do. She wanted me to react. And the moment I reacted, she was going to be on the phone calling the cops. So
Right.
I split the switch. I called the cops on her. And I told them it was a sister, I could tell, who answered the phone. And I told her what I had already looked up the definition of harassment in Connecticut, the law. I called the police. I told the sister what was happening. And she said, "Oh, that's harassment. You want to send somebody over?" I said, "Yeah, send somebody over." So this is where it starts. 2 cops come over. One is obviously a veteran. The other looked like he came out of the academy right before he came to my place. So he was just with the older guy. The older guy was angry with me because I called them on this white woman.
No.
And he was actually saying things that were inappropriate about her, about how I should respond to say, "What do you mean? This little old lady, you had to call us? What does that suggest? I'm supposed to go over there and somehow physically do something to her so that she can come over here and shoot me,
Right.
He tried to convince me that what I was calling for and what I was describing was not harassment. I had on my phone here, I Googled it, and I had the phone with me.
Right.
And I gave him the phone and said, "That's the definition." In fact, what she's doing is the first definition of harassment. He held my phone for an uncomfortably long time. I think he wanted me to try to snatch it out of his hand so he would ultimately have a reason to beat me down or something. But that was one of the most profound situations I've had, since living here, that I called the police on somebody and they tried to turn it on me because he was upset, that she really got outplayed, quite frankly, because she was trying to do something for me to call her to call the cops on me. I ended up calling the cops on her. So they ended up having to go and talk to her and then say, she's not going to do it anymore, that sort of thing. But the guy, as he was leaving, I forgot what I said to him, but he said something about, we are the law. And I said to him, "No, this is the law. You're law enforcement. Next time when you come here, enforce the law."
Right. Man, so, as you said that, you did the reverse thing on, I'm sure, I saw all the brothers nodding their heads like, yeah, that's great. What are you talking about, Derek? Because I saw you nodding your head, man. What was on your mind when you said that?
You call me?
Yeah, what was on your mind? Because I can see your head nodding and the facial expression.
I think that all of us have a story and all of us have a narrative. And the unfortunate thing is there's a pattern. And the pattern is, why is it that when you continue to talk to know how many Black men, they all have experiences of being treated differently simply because of their skin color? Whether it's in law enforcement, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in business, whether it's just in general public. And so with these patterns that exist, if we don't understand the historical perspective around how social and economic policy, the historical perspective around the history around slavery and lynching and all these things have taken place, then we really can't understand why we continue to have these situations that are occurring each and every day. And it's not in isolation, but the challenge is that they want to blame this on the actions and behaviors. And so anytime you think about a person of color doing something, the first thing they want to do is look at how we can criminalize this person and turn to the action and behaviors without looking at the system that's in place and really addressing the root cause of what's happening throughout this society.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that, Sharon. And as I look and I see what you all are doing with your heads and facial expression, I might pick on you just a little bit. So, did Chevron come on? Or no? No?
Yeah, he's here.
Chevron?
Yeah, I'm here. Greetings, everyone.
Chevron, good, man. Look, Chevron. So we have my friend Chevron T. Scott. My man, if you would, just take a few minutes, a few sentences, just to introduce yourself real quick.
Okay, my name is Chevron Scott, and I'm a practicing attorney. I'm also a full-time faculty member at Florence Darlington Tech. I teach in paralegal studies, graduate of Morehouse College and the South Carolina School of Law. I'm also practicing in the areas of criminal defense, personal injury, and I'm really involved in my community trying to make sure that we get to a point where we can uplift ourselves in a positive way.
Okay. Look, so we're talking, I had the brother just now, quick, and if you've had a firsthand experience, tell us about it. I'm going to give you that same opportunity. If you're telling no mind, I'm going to give them that same opportunity.
Okay, well, I'm really concerned about this idea of racial profiling because I've been racially profiled 3 times in my life, and all three times that I was racially profiled, I was actually already a lawyer and a judge at that time, and I also had one of the kids that I mentored who had my car who was racially profiled. So, this racial profiling is very serious. The most interesting one was I was on my way to Augusta for a high school basketball game. And of course, during that time, Raymond Felton was a good friend of mine. So I had on a Raymond Felton jersey. I was in my Mercedes driving back, and I was driving through Lexington. And I saw the cop, I saw the trooper. Matter of fact, the trooper, he passed me and I slowed down. And before I could even slow down, he slows down and he lets me pass him. He puts on his signal. So I pull over. The first thing he says, you know why I stopped you? And I said, no, I don't, because I knew I wasn't speeding, but I just wanted to see where his head was. And he said, do you have anything in your car? And I said, what would incline you to think that I have something in my car, even if you suspected me of speeding? It was during that time he had another trooper with him, and the other trooper came up on the other side, on the passenger side. So he was looking in my car. So now I got 2 officers looking in my car, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and squash this right now. So luckily, this trooper that was looking in my car, he looked down and he recognized me, because I was a judge at that time. He recognized me and he was like, hey, how you doing, Judge? And I said, I'm doing fine. As soon as he said Judge, the other guy who was questioning me, he got really quiet. And I said, you know what? I said, I understand what you did and you're wrong. And I said, under other circumstances, I would have waited for a supervisor to come in order to check them. But I said, you know what, since the other trooper had already known me, I just looked at him. I said, listen, if you're training him, you have to train him better than this, because I know I wasn't doing anything wrong. So it's right. But it is the psychology that I think a lot of law enforcement has when they come into an environment where they see a young black male. And it's that stereotype, is that perception that we have to eradicate. And I don't think we can eradicate it simply by being angry when it happens. I think we have to take steps towards making sure that it doesn't happen again. For example, in a case like that, what I tried to do is I tried to tell him, you know what, you're gonna have to train better. You're gonna have to train your officers better, because your officers, they decided to take that job. They weren't drafted into that job, they decided to. And I think that's one of the key things, is about training these officers not to automatically want to pull guns, or not automatically think that a young black male is a drug dealer or something like that.
Right. Thank you. And if you're listening to us here on Facebook Live, we're discussing what's really going on. We're having a frank conversation, and I know many of you listening, you probably got a lot of heartache, heart pain, or whatever's going on. Because I put on my Facebook earlier that, I'm asking God to really help me with what's going on, because I'm hurting just like everybody else, and I feel it. Trust me, whatever you thinking, I'm sure we feel the same exact way. My next question: what is the role of the black man? What is the role that we can play as black men, right? In ensuring change on our local, state, and national level. What role we're playing? Derek, I want you to go ahead and take a niche at this.
One of the things that Chevron was saying that I agree with, when you talk about training and practice, one of the part of the work that we focus on is that we understand that institutional racism is structural inequities embedded in policy, procedures, and practice that are causing disparities and disproportionalities across systems. And so we have to really focus on policies. We have to really look at how do we advocate and galvanize to look at how we get to really change policy through a racial equity lens. And then more importantly, once you change policies, then practice and training follows. And so I think it's great that we can come on and talk about our concerns, our issues. It's great for those who choose to protest in the street, whatever your form or method is. But we also have to organize. We also have to be very judicious in going and advocating for policy change, particularly when it continues to cause harm, intentional or unintentional. Because by changing policy, we have the opportunity to impact hundreds of thousands of people that come after us. And so as we continue to organize, as we continue to mobilize in our own way, whatever that is, I think we have to make sure that we're focused on going inside and working within these systems and institutions to look at addressing the policies that continue to maintain the inequities that we continue to face.
Oh, that's deep. That's deep. You know what? I want somebody almost with who said, Derek, I hear what you're saying, but I think about it a little different right now. Any of you all are that person? No, because I'm looking at some faces as Derek decided that what he said, that's the way he feels. However, I'm looking at Kareem's face, I'm looking at Tuck's face, and your face is say something.
But he's right. He's right. He's right. Just to piggyback, we have to get out and vote. We have to vote on the local level. That's so imperative. That's paramount to these changes that he's talking about. We have to get out and vote. We have too many people, that, they have so many complaints, but they don't vote, right? So when change happens, change comes when you vote on all levels, but especially the local level, because that's true, that's the community right there, right? So when you have change, that's where the change comes, from your councilman, right? From your sheriff, from your coroners, right? From your judges, your doggone mayors, the local level. We can't change way up there, right? But we can change that community level right there, because that's where it matters at. That's where it hits home at, because we have those same cops that they are patrolling those neighborhoods looking for young men to harass every single day. That starts, with your city managers, right? That starts right there at home on the local level. We have to get out and vote. Last week, I talked to five young men, right? We asked them one question: who is your mayor? Not one knew. Not one knew. Now, these 5 young men were all in high school, right? So we have to do, we got to come together, and we have to come as men, right, and educate these young men, right? Right now, right? Let's not wait till they come to high school, college, whatever. Let's get to them right now in middle school, whatever. Let's teach these young men the ropes. So, when they turn, 17, 18 years old, let's register them to vote, right? Then let's teach them why it's so, why it's so important for them to vote.
Right. Kareem, I want to come back to you, but I want to jump to Reverend Ross Lee on this one real quick. Reverend Ross Lee, I want to hear you. And then Chevron, and then Kareem real quick.
All right. I first want to shout out my Morehouse brother, Brother Scott. How you doing, brother? So I think that we all have areas. You know, nobody can do everything, and
Right.
we all have areas in which we work. So you're in the legal profession, you're in legal, space. You should be working there. I'm obviously in the church space. I'm in the Black church space. Clearly. We have voices. We need to raise those voices. We need to raise those voices within our communities as well, because it's not just about leaders and what leaders are doing and thinking. It's also about what, the people who are not, trying to be leaders like that and what they're thinking. I think we talk about voting a lot, but I think it's more than changing personalities. It's also changing policies. It's about changing systems in ways that, in whatever ways we can. Because a lot of these guys, a lot of these women, people go into office and they're like, well, that's the law, that's the this, that, the that, as if these things are sacrosanct, as if they came down, rained down from heaven, and they, can't be changed.
Right.
The law there's a difference between law and justice. We all know that. Slavery was legal, segregation was legal. All these things are legal, but are they just? So,
right.
When white folks start, we're a nation of laws. No, we should be a nation of justice. That's what we need to be working towards. And we also need to engage very seriously the people for whom we're voting. I know there's a big push, from the Black community that we got to put Biden in, we got to get Trump out. I'm tired of Black people voting out of fear, quite frankly. And I'm tired of us voting for the lesser of two evils. I was at Morehouse when I heard Julian Bond say for the first time, the lesser of two evils is still evil. So we got to stop doing that. And we got to start having a plan, an agenda that we bring to the people for whom we're voting and who we're endorsing. And when they get in office and don't follow those agendas, we give them hell, just like we gave the person hell that, maybe didn't have our agenda. But we got to we got to get in there, get into the system, and get into the situation from whatever vantage point we have, and everybody obviously is not in every vantage point, but the vantage point from which we're operating, we have to move from that vantage point and determine what we can do from the vantage point where we are.
Chevron.
All right, let me just say this. And part of my dilemma with our community is I think our outrage is always misplaced and it's always misguided. And what I mean is this, is that whenever something happens, we get outraged, we get angry, we post, we do all of that, and then we just wait for the next one to come, and then we do the same thing over and over again. I think there has to be a comprehensive plan that we put in place that provides solutions for the outrage. For example, one of the things that I am very keen on, particularly in our communities, is making sure that we hold our leaders accountable for their actions or their lack of actions in our community. Right. So if we have leaders who come to us during voting time, but when we have these kind of issues, they don't show up in our favor or they don't show up to advocate for us, now we have to use a systematic approach in getting them out of office and putting those people in who have our best interests at heart.
And so, Chevron, let me break there for a minute. Are you referring to just those of one race, or are you referring to everybody, like whomever?
I'm referring to every person who advocates that they are for us.
Right.
They have to prove that they are for us. They can't just say it. And see, that's what we've been going by. We've been putting the same people in office because they come around during voting time and they tell us what we want to hear. But then when these kinds of issues happen, we don't see them. They're not standing at the forefront. And what I'm saying is it's time for us to start holding them accountable. That creates a different kind of dialect. It creates a different kind of dialogue as it relates to what a solution is. For example, let's talk about what just happened in Minnesota. Everybody's upset about that, right? Now, there you have police officers who are there those police officers, they have to answer to certain people. They have supervisors that they have to answer to, who have supervisors that they have to answer to. So why not hold not just those police officers accountable? We can't just hold them accountable. We have to understand why did that police officer believe that he was entitled to do that? There is an atmosphere that is within that police system, and if it wasn't there, then that officer would never be there. So we got to get to the bottom of that. And what that means is, if it's in Minnesota, I'm not sure what their equivalent is in South Carolina, but let's just say if in South Carolina, if it was a state trooper, then we have to go all the way up the line to see what are the policies are there. Who are the people who are implementing those, and how can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? See, that's a different kind of dialogue than simply just being outraged by the fact that a man lost his life. And I think what we have to do in our communities is we have to stop being so angry and allow that anger to foster a different kind of dialogue as it relates to a solution. I'm all about solutions. I'm not about marching anymore. I'm tired of marching. I'm tired of pleading with folks for them to treat me like a human being. The time has come for us to start acting and for us to collectively come together with a different kind of dialect. And I hope by all of us kind of going through this evening that we can come up with some kind of solutions that can be practical in our communities so that we can take them to our individual communities and really make a difference, as opposed to us just talking about it.
Right, and I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. That's exactly where I'm going with these types of conversations. Of course, you know, like I said, many of you all are doing these things already in your community. For those who are listening, these brothers that we're talking to, they're already doing things, whether they're doing it through the church, whether Derek is doing it through Race Matters and other means. You got Terrence Tucker doing it through the Tucker Project. You got Kareem being outspoken, and it's always funny because I always say he started his community activism at his HOA, you know. So Kareem, you take a few minutes, maybe 3 minutes or so, just to talk about what we're talking about. How does the role of the black man, how do we play in ensuring change on the local, state, and national level, bro?
I think one of the biggest things that's been mentioned is we have to actually vote. Another thing that I am I'm advocate of is reaching back to younger, people of color and kind of showing them the ropes. One of the key things of actually showing them the ropes is to tell them to actually stay out of trouble, because if you get in trouble, then you actually can't vote. All right. And that's actually key. All right. Another thing is this. I honestly think that we need to get more white people to feel our pain. Now, I don't want y'all to take that the wrong way. When I say that,
that's leading into my next question.
Right. Actually, white people need to understand the power that they have. I mean, I can't name actual law off the top of my head named after someone like black. You have Megan's Law, stuff like that. Like, come on now. And we don't have anything out there that actually came as a result of something that actually happened to us. Even every other couple of weeks or every week, we are having someone being shot or someone being killed. It's the actual same thing happening week after week after week. I'm just I'm tired of it, honestly. So, and it's at times, I get so frustrated, and I'm like, what actually can we actually do? We can sit here, we can talk about it all day, but it's what actually can we do? And I think that's where sometimes we're at a brick wall. It's we actually want to do this, but does it actually work? And that's kind of, I think, that's kind of where we are now. Everybody has, since that incident happened on Monday, and before I got on this call, I was listening to the FBI and the prosecutor, and they had a nerve to ask for more video of somebody who was there. I said, we all was there now, because we all saw this daggone video, and they are looking for more video. I'm like, come on now. So that's all I got right now, Johnny.
Right. I mean, yeah, we all saw the video, and And if you're like me, you know, you looked at a video and you looked at an EMS person that came over, took a pulse of a man and walked away because he knew that man was dead, right? He knew at that moment he was dead. And even to the point of trying to fix his head up like he was alive and trying to put him on the stretcher like he was alive, knowing that he was dead. And then we go even Derek asked to as far as to say, hey, you know what? He died at the hospital. Come on, y'all. You all thought we was born yesterday? No, we're not born. I might have been born at night, but I wasn't born yesterday. So you led into my next question, which is there a role, Chevron, and you can go first. Is there a role for other point of contact, especially for white people to play in addressing and stopping these injustices? What role can they be playing, or what role, let's say, per se, should they be playing? Chevron.
Bro, listen, the brother who just come, man, I just posted about this yesterday. And what I basically said was this, is that the key to ending racism is not black folks being angry. The key to ending racism is white folks, a majority of white folks decide that they've had enough of the privilege of being white to the point that they understand that the rights of black folks are being eradicated and black folks are really suffering. And part of the problem is that sometimes white folks believe that racism doesn't exist anymore because they see certain black folks advancing or they see successful black folks. So a majority of them, they don't have any empathy towards the struggle. But the moment that white folks, a majority of white folks decide, you know what, this is not right, you're going to start to see a change. If you look at the civil rights movement historically, even though we had the Dr. Kings and we had all that, what really started things going was when white folks started being a part of the process. And we can't just leave them out of this process if we really want a systematic crumbling of this racism.
Right.
It starts with us, but it also starts with us being able to understand that we are just one entity in this chain, and we gotta make sure we get those who are in power, those who have the infrastructure of power, we have to make sure that they recognize the inequities in order for us to be able to break that chain the way that we need to.
Reverend Ross Lee, jump on in there real quick, brother.
I don't think that white people do not understand the reality of what's going on. Racism is more, American racism is more about power than anything else. Okay, it's always been that way. When we were, our enslaved, and I call them hostages, our ancestors were taken hostage and put into slavery. They created these notions about us to maintain their racism, to maintain what they were getting out of enslaving us. And they continue to do the same thing. It's very hard for people to give up power, to give up privilege, to give up a status, and to share with other people. This is why these white folk are running around now, crying, a whole bunch of Karens are crying on social media about wearing the mask, okay? They feel oppressed. You've never felt oppressed. They've never felt oppressed before. So this little thing like this is making them feel oppressed. But when we talk about, involving white people into our struggle, I remember years ago, I got a call from some dude in New Jersey. I have no idea how he even got my phone number. I don't even remember asking him. But he called me and asked, he said he was looking for some books. He had something had happened racially wise in the country. And he had a study group and they were meeting in the library and they were trying to, study some things about racism. And could I suggest some books for him, on Black history and this kind of stuff? And I said, no, you're looking for the wrong books. You need to look at books about what white people did to Black people. It's not just about studying our history. It's about studying the crap that you've done to us. So there was a book, when Affirmative Action Was White. I gave him that book, and several others. Because you know, you need to understand what you have done and what you are doing. And a whole lot of white people don't know some of the past stuff. I mean, they know the present stuff because they're benefiting from it. But
Right.
I don't think that's an easy. I mean, it may be ideal, but that's a hard hole to row to say white people drop your racism and join with us, because I think even from the civil rights movement, the white people who joined in, you still got this whole group of white liberals, see, and it was all about just racism being kinder. It was about, you know, we're not going to turn water hose on you, we're not going to make it obvious, we're not going to do things like that, but we are going to call the cops and tell them a black man is threatening my life if I don't think anybody else is going to see this. That white girl went to the University of Chicago. And I tell people all the time, I have a great friend who graduated PhD from University of Chicago. I tell people all the time, you can say what you want to about Harvard and Yale. University of Chicago is Harvard and Yale on steroids, okay? She's a very smart person. Now, the brother she was dealing with went to Harvard. You know, he's a smart guy too, obviously. But she was using her privilege because she didn't want to put her dog on a leash. I'm going to call the cops and tell them a black man is threatening my life.
Right.
Because they're not going to give that up very easily. So I, for me, that wouldn't be my first route, quite frankly. It wouldn't be my first route.
Well,
and like I say, you know, I don't have to deal with white folk a whole lot in my reality as a pastor of a black church, whole 9 yards, right? And so I don't even know the answer to that question. I don't even listen. I don't have white folk on my Facebook page, and I get upset when I'm responding to a brother on his Facebook page, and some white person come and respond to what I said. I'm like, and I don't respond to the white dude. I'm like, dude, why do you have this white boy on your Facebook page?
Right. You know, hey, and those who listening, if you're white or black, hey, you know, we often censor our Facebook page. So Derek, you want to jump in there with this? Because Derek, this is, you know, you just heard Chevron, you just heard Reverend Ross Lee, and I got Kareem and Chuck to go, but I saw your facial expressions, I hear you, and because you know, I'm not saying that you almost forced to work around it, you know, try to partner, but talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, one of the things I truly believe is that sometimes we can sometimes live in a space where things have to be bivariant. It has to be black or white, one way or the other way. But I have arrived to the perspective is that we really should be multivariate in terms of looking at a variety of different perspectives. Because one of the things that I see sometimes that we can get staked out of position by being right, which means if somebody has to be right, then somebody has to be wrong. And we also have to think about our socialization, our values and beliefs. Even for us as black men, once we continue to talk, we're going to find some crossroads where we don't agree on things. And that may be kicked back to our socialization, our lived experiences. And so what I do as it relates to part of my work, one of the things I also believe and understand, there are a lot of white allies out there who are in the trenches, in the work, trying to do the best that they can do. And I believe is white people needs to talk to white people. That's part of their role. That's part of their job. And they need to educate whites. The other thing of what I believe is that we can't assume that all white people are bad, just like not all black people are good, right? And so we look at crime and homicide and things that are taking place. We have to also create the narrative around, understand there are multiple truths that can exist in the space at the same time.
Right.
Multiple truths can exist in a space at the same time. And then we arrived at that by understanding different perspectives and lived experiences. And I, for one, am in the trenches every day with the work that I do. And I work alongside a lot of people, white and black people of color, men and women, whose heart and mind is in the right place. And so one of the things I recognize with this work is it's a process about building respect. It's a process about building trust. And then there are no quick fixes. It's not going to happen overnight. I've also seen and understand, once you get to understand the heart and mind of people, that provides an opportunity to look at how you can shape and influence people to do things differently.
Right.
And I would say that sometimes we have to work where we sit or where we stand. And that's where you position. Whether you position in a community or wherever, it doesn't matter. Everybody has a role to play. But the question is, do you have the courage and bravery to do it? The other thing is, what is the cost? Because you have some of us, or people of color, who sit in great places and spaces, but yet they still won't do things for us. And they have access, they have influence, they have resources and have it to do it. And so I think we do have to be mindful about how we are labeling people and how we are drawing narratives. And we also have to look at, I like to say, the distraction. The distraction of what I find in this work, for me to say, Johnny, what you need to go to change, but I'm not willing to address my own stuff. We all have biases, we all have implicit biases, and we all have blind spots. And the other thing I should be saying, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
And the other thing I believe we do sometimes is public shaming. I believe that if that's your thing, that's fine. But I also believe that if you give people grace and mercy and benefit of the doubt, and anytime there's something that goes awry that you don't understand, why not pull that person to a side and help and talk to them and help them to and ask questions, to be a curious learner, to help to understand why their action and behavior went a certain way. Right. But at the same time, be willing to say, from an I statement, this is what I heard you say and do, help me to understand. And then how do we look at mending hearts and building relationships than destroying bridges? And I think that person will have better respect for you if you pull them to the side and call them on their stuff than you do it publicly. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to own our own mess, because there are some things that we do to our own people, right? And we have to own that. Right. And so I think it's one thing to say what others are doing to our people, but we also have to acknowledge in the same space what we're doing to our own. And I think as a part of that, we can do both. We can continue to address the systemic issues that happen within systems and institutions around practice, around change, around policy and procedures. But at the same time, we can look at our hearts and minds of how we're treating people. One of my colleagues in this work, the Madam Clerk, Alicia Chingera, who's a clerk of Superior Court, Mecklenburg County, says, how you see people is how you serve people.
Ooh,
and so how you see people is how you serve people. And so I think if we're taking a multivariate approach, looking at how we're addressing systems and institutions from the inside and the outside, because we need an internal strategy and an external strategy. And also at the same time, what are we doing to address our biases and our blind spots in terms of how we're seeing and working with people, particularly our own people in our own country.
Right. Kareem, real quick, and if Tuck's still there, Tuck, I'm not sure if you're there, but go right after Kareem.
All right. I'm a little lost on the, on what you were. I'm sorry. Could you just run by me again? Yeah,
we asked. Give me a second. Getting back to my screen. So I asked, is there a role that or point of contact that white people play in addressing and stopping these injustices? And what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm gonna go back to something that was said, and I think it was powerful. It was basically saying they don't want to give up the power that they have. And I think that right there says a whole lot. All right. And if someone doesn't want to give it up, I mean, I'm just honestly at an actual loss of what we can do peacefully, to actually take that actual powerful. To actually take that actual, to take that power from them peacefully. And I say that because I'm sitting here and I see people, when it comes to like looting and stuff, that doesn't solve anything. Looting is wrong. Okay, looting is a crime. Okay, and I can say like this: if we didn't have as much to, lose by looting, and and we were there, there's a good chance we would probably be doing that same thing. Honestly, it's just that those people out there are not thinking, and they're just acting out. All right, but it just kind of is that like you said, white people aren't ready to give up their actual power, and the actual question is, will they ever be? And then that comes back is, how will this ever change if they don't want to give up their actual power?
Mm-hmm. Tuck, you still there? No, Tuck.
Yeah. You
want to answer that? You want to answer that real quick? Say again. Yeah. So, what role or point of contact of other people or white people play in addressing and stopping these injustices? You heard the other brothers. What are your thoughts, real quick, on that? Maybe 2 minutes or so.
Just to be real short, I really don't know, John, to be honest with you. Because we play a bigger role, right? Because we have to start policing, we have to start doing more policing with my community, right? With your community, with his community, right? we can't wait for them to change. We have to be the change, right? So my goal is, listen, we have, you know, we've all worked before, you know, we've all worked with white people. Listen, you know, in my experience, you know, there are some good white people and some bad white people. There are some good cops and some horrible cops. Okay, so you really can't, you really can't win for losing, but at the same time, you can't control your own narrative, right? By doing what you're supposed to do, right? Because we don't need more criminals, we need more scholars.
Okay.
Right?
That's fair.
we have to stop putting these, we have to teach these young men not to put themselves in the position to be harassed, right, by cops, right? Because we have one situation where the guy was, the guy was using FaceTime running from the cops, right? Then the guy got shot, right? Like, you can't do wrong, then say you treated me wrong.
Right.
So
right.
we have to teach these young men, you know what I'm saying, what's right and wrong, and we have to do a better job with exposing these young men to more than what they currently see, right? We have to take these young men outside their communities, right? There was this guy named Mike, right? And Mike paid $20 for me to go to a college tour to South Carolina State University, right?
Mm-hmm.
That $20 changed my life, right? That $20 changed my life because my goal was not to go to college, right? So we have to take these young men outside their communities, right? Show them more, right? We have to teach these young men how to work, right? What's working and how to work around mixed cultures, right?
Right.
Because that's so important. Because listen, my first time working with a white man was when I moved to Washington, D.C., right? When I was like 28 years old. My first time, my middle school was all black, right? My high school was all black. My college was all black, right? So we have to do a better job with training these young men and women how to work around diverse cultures to change their narrative. That's
okay, so we, I heard that, and so just the other day I was telling Kendra on a Facebook post or something, I said, similar to what you all are saying, until, and those who listen on Facebook Live, you listen to our Facebook Live, you can share it, I'm not ashamed. Until we have powerful white men who are ready to lose everything. I mean everything. The Bill Gates, the Warren Buffett, they ready to lose everything, and they have power, they have influence, they ready to lose it all. Things will not change, So we do have to have powerful people on our team, those powerful entities outside of the African American culture. I heard what you say on how can an African American man, how will we play in changing this? So we only got two more questions. I don't want to hold you long, but we talk about black on black crime. I was in a conversation with a friend just the other day, and the friend said pretty much, what about black on black crime? I said, what about white on white crime? You don't sit and act like there's not white on white crime. So you're gonna say just because what's going on right now, why you see our people looting or these young people looting and frustrated and tired? That, to me, when I see it, I look at it from a different lens, because you don't have the same lens that I see when I see what's going on. You don't have, when you look at what happened the other day with George Floyd getting killed, your lens is not the same view I'm seeing because of what you said to me, whether we're talking face to face. So how does black on black crime impact or play out into what we see happening nationally? Does it play a fact? Chevron, where you at? I want to hear from you on this.
Well, I think that the stereotypes that black males have in this society is a very dangerous and it's a racist It has a racist connotation behind it. And what happens is you have these police officers who are invested in the thuggery that they're seeing played out in entertainment, played out on the streets. So they are acting upon what the perception of the black male is in society, which is a dangerous thing. But I think as far as the black on black crime, we should be held accountable for what we do to one another. But that's a totally different conversation, and you can't put it in the context of when a police officer kills an unarmed black male or when someone else does something. You can't do that, because when we kill one another, we go to jail. There is no in between. There is no waiting for a video. So it's a different conversation, and I don't want that conversation to in any way cloud the reality of the perception that society has about black males. But can I go back to something that was said earlier when we were
quickly, go ahead.
When we were talking about the role that I think your question dealt with the role that maybe white people have in this. I think we have to be very mindful that we can't use the same conversation with racism that we've been using for the last 50, 60 years and expect for things to change.
Somebody tweet that.
Racism changes by piece. We're not going to knock down the whole monster of racism. But what I think we can do is each one of us has a responsibility, a spiritual and a moral responsibility to educate and to teach not only our young people, but we also have an obligation to teach white folks who we believe have a good faith effort in trying to learn about our struggle. If we can teach them, or at least get them to see through our lens, they can become a part of the agent of change too. And that's what I mean when I said earlier that they can be a part of this process. Sure, they will not be able to identify with the discrimination that we felt, but if we can get them, and I've already seen it on Facebook, I've already seen where a number of them have spoken out on their page. And once white folks start speaking out on their page, especially to those friends that they have who are not thinking the way that they do, at least they create a dialogue. At least they put it out there. And right. I believe that starts a process.
Yeah. Reverend Ross Lee.
A few years back, I don't remember exactly how, maybe 3 years back, I was at Morehouse Homecoming and saw this white guy walk through with a Black Lives Matter shirt on. And I was saying to myself, I wonder if he's going to do that over at Georgia Tech. We already know this. So for me, it's not just about speaking out. It's about putting yourself at risk with your people, quite frankly.
Right.
But I want to say something about, because it's been mentioned twice. I want to say something about it the first time. It's mentioned twice now. This whole notion about anger and the appropriateness of it, looting and the appropriateness of it. And I want to say this. I want to be clear about. I'm saying this from a Christian perspective.
Go ahead.
Okay. Jesus got angry. He called people out of their name. He called one of his favorite disciples. He called Satan. He called the Sadducees and the Pharisees hypocrites and vipers and snakes and all this sort of thing. He went into the temple and turned over tables and literally beat people in the temple. And nobody, although it's not, biblically written, nobody could convince me that while he was doing that, he was saying, "Bless you, my child." So I'm just adding I'm using what we used to call Baptist imagination to imagine what he was saying while he was doing that. King talks about righteous indignation. Obviously Malcolm talks about anger. I just read a quote not very long ago by John Kennedy, where he says, when you make peaceful means impossible, you make non-peaceful means inevitable.
Right.
Anger is legitimate. And some of the ways in which it is acted out is also legitimate. Because, we've known and we've seen every time something happens to a black person, the white media comes, I don't care if it's a black reporter, it's the white media, sticks a mic in their face and say, "Do you forgive them?" They don't do that to white people.
Right.
They want to make sure that we're settled, make sure that we are operating in this Pauline. I'm not a Pauline Christian. I'm a Jesus Christian, and Jesus acted in a very different way than Paul and his students. So I believe in that, and I believe in the value of it. We talk about looting. They're tearing up their neighborhoods, and people don't live in those. They don't own those neighborhoods. They're paying high rents. They're paying higher prices, and all that kind of stuff. And they're frustrated. What did King say? Riots are the language of the unheard.
Riots are the language of the unheard. Right.
So sometimes that's the only way you can be heard. So I'm speaking as a Christian pastor. Anger and some of these ways in which it is acted out is necessary. Now, I do want to go back and say, I think it was Brother Scott was talking about how people go out in the street and then they post stuff on Facebook or whatever, and then that's the end of it. The way the street theater, which is what I call that, is not helping, is not doing anything. Going out and just being angry is not doing anything. But I don't have this bifurcation. I think that's a Western philosophical perspective in the first place, this whole bifurcation between being angry and being reasonable at the same time. I think that can happen. I'm a whole person. I don't segregate myself. I don't separate and bifurcate myself. I can be an angry person, and I can also be a reasonable person. And I can be a reasonable person while I am angry. So, we have to put that other part in. But I don't necessarily say we got to take that other part out.
Right. Derek, then Kareem jump in there, because I saw both of y'all shaking your heads both at the same time, and it's like, it looked like both of y'all wanted to say something. Derek, jump in there real quick with this.
In short, I believe in a lot of perspectives that's been shared tonight, and I think we have to work where we sit or work where we stand. And I think each one of us take a part and do the best that we can do wherever we're doing. I think we can make progress, because not everybody's going to do everything the same way, and you don't want that. Not everybody thinks the same way or act the same way. And so I think we use our collective empowerment, look at how we can develop and organize around common strategies that we have consensus around, and we do internal and external motivation in terms of how we can get it done, and also use our influence and our social capital to move things. And I think it's about relationships as well. And so I think it's all of that that we can be able to use. And I think we should just be mindful and respectful if other people's ways are not our ways.
Right. Kareem, jump in there real quick. Y'all give Kareem a few minutes, and if you're listening on Facebook, you're hearing us, you're hearing, what Reverend Ross Lee said, what Chevron said, and what Derek just said, Anderson said, and so we're getting a couple of different perspectives of men and brothers who are different in different places of the country right now, actually, whether it's Florence, South Carolina, whether it's New Haven, Connecticut, Kareem, you're in, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Maryland. So jump in there real quick, Kareem.
I would say the actual one thing that I kind of want to go back and kind of bring you all back. You're talking about black on black crime, okay?
Right.
And is it wrong? Yes. Do I understand it? In a context, yes. You look at how we are housed. You look at how we have been pushed into these ghettos. All right. You look at how we have been, look at how stuff like drugs has been brought into our neighborhoods. We don't have boats. We don't have we don't have stuff like that to actually bring drugs in. And then over the years and over time, we had this inner fight and inner with each other. And I think that I just think that if we could get everybody to focus that anger and focus that actual lack of trust that we have in the law, and we can put it to some useful, maybe we can get some type of change.
Okay.
Look, Johnny, let me say this right quick. I'm gonna be very brief, because I didn't speak on the black and black thing. I think that's a distraction to the larger issue of racism. That's all I want to say about that. And I appreciate what Brother Anderson said, because uniformity is the death of unity. And too often we kill unity because we're trying to make everybody be the same. Uniformity is the death of unity. And he's right. We're going to have different perspectives. We need to be working on the same larger picture, however.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because we were just having this conversation the other day when
Right.
my friend and I said, and I think you and I said this the other day, that, you know, when somebody says, especially when somebody of Caucasian perspective or white perspective say, what about black on black crime? No, that's a distraction to racism. We're talking about racism. We're talking about race relation, discrimination, or prejudice, or whatever. So Chuck, we're gonna move forward with this last question, and you can be the first one to answer this, okay? How can we use our collective efforts to affect change? And last question, I know this maybe a little loaded, but how can we use our collective efforts? You know, whether it's us, whether it's those who listening via Facebook land, because some people are sitting there right now, Derek, and saying, what can I do to affect change? Whether we're white, whether we're black. So go ahead and answer. How can we use our collective efforts to affect change?
We need more boots on the ground.
Okay.
You know, we need more people stepping up. We need more black fathers to come back inside the homes, right? You know, we need more people teaching. You know, what are the principles, right? We need more. You know, we need more, man. You know, community events. We need more. You know, fraternity stepping up. We need more sorority stepping up, right? We need more boots to step up, because listen, man, you do not have to be rich to make an impact. Okay? You do not have to be rich to be a mentor, right? We all got something special, right? So we have to work together. We need people to also start, well, let's say you have to support more black businesses also. Okay?
Pause right there.
You have
Pause right there, Chuck. I'm gonna move to Derek on this question next. We're gonna move through. Chuck said we need more boots on the ground, mentors, especially mentors, boots on the ground. I like that part. Derek, you move forward with this question.
Well, I think he's exactly right. And I think what we have to also look at is, what do we have from a strength-based perspective? You work with what you have. But I think we also, the one thing we have to put into the space, we have to think about sometimes, even for us, how pride and ego can show up. Because, you know, we talk about being collective and working as men, but sometimes that pride and ego shows up because if it ain't our thing, I can't support that brother. If it ain't my thought or my idea, then I'm not going to do it. And so that's something that's within us that we have to work out and address. And some of our colleagues, we have this conversation about Malcolm and Martin all the time. And I said, what I believe is that the ultimate goal was the same, but their strategy was different. The goal was the same, but the strategy was different. And so sometimes we have people in our camp that sometimes find divisiveness and turn us against each other.
Right.
So we have to be mindful. We have to stump out that, and we have to look at what is it that we're bringing, what is the ultimate goal, and what is my lane and what is my role. And for some of us, if we're not calling the shots, if we're not at the head, we're not really taking orders from nobody. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home because this ain't my thought or my idea. And that's something that happens with us that we have to address.
I'm taking my ball and going home. I'm gonna just do some executive orders, change Twitter maybe. I don't know. You know, I'm just saying. Chevron, Reverend Ross Lee, and Kareem. Then we're gonna wrap up with anything you all want to say in the end, each one of y'all.
Okay, let me say this from my perspective, and I'm just speaking strictly from the legal perspective.
Okay.
The things that I've tried to do as a lawyer and the things that I've been on the bench who come before me, they're defendants. I'm not just throwing them to the wolves. I'm not just giving them a sentence. I'm not just giving them a button, because I might be the only person that has shown them any kind of concern or love, particularly those who come and their parents. They don't even show up. So from just a legal perspective, when it comes to that as a judge, I do that every day. Every day I'm on the bench. As a
Chevron, you still there?
lawyer, I'm not just this and I can do things. From that's just me in my little world. Now imagine if each one of us in our own little world does the exact same thing. Imagine the kind of change we can really make. You start talking about boots on the ground. Boots on the ground starts with you. It starts with me. And if we got boots on the ground, then we inspire others to do other things too. And I think we don't have enough men, black men, who are willing to really take out the time to inspire our world and our communities the way that we should. I think each one of us can do that. Whether you can do it. If you're a barber, you can do it. If you're a pastor, you can do it. We all have an opportunity right now to formulate a plan to change our own selves and our own families first, and then branch out. But we got to have the courage to do that, and it means stepping up, and it means putting yourself in a position where you can lose something. I know because of my outspokenness, I know that's one of the main reasons why I'm not on the federal bench right now, because I've been so outspoken. But I'm willing to sacrifice what I sacrifice in order for my people to be uplifted in a way that I can control.
Okay, that's good. Reverend Ross Lee.
Yeah, I think the whole metaphor about boots on the ground has to be, in the same conversation I just had before, and the thing that Brother Anderson said, that means different things for different people. I operate where I operate, but I can't just stay in the church.
Right.
Personally, I have taught in the public school system here on, summer programs. I tutor, I have taught, debate at my daughter's school. I'm engaging in various activities, community social protests in the community, that sort of thing. But boots on the ground means different things for different people. I remember when I was, when I was at Morehouse, I worked with Julian Bond when he ran for president. When he ran for Congress. And a lot of people in Atlanta didn't like him because he was not John Lewis. John Lewis is out there marching, and you got film of it and that kind of stuff. But Julian Bond was born on a college campus. His father was a college president. He was a very erudite, educated man. And that's what he did. He wrote papers. He did research. That was his boots on the ground. The whole thing about speaking truth to power wherever you are. Being willing, as Brother Scott said, to put yourself in a position where you might have something taken away because you're willing to speak truth to power. I think all of that is boots on the ground, but I don't think all of it ends up in a literal way of boots on the ground.
Okay.
People can do different things.
Okay, Kareem, real quick, and then after Kareem go, we'll take each person, Kareem, and you can take a few minutes, just a few minutes to answer that question. But however, afterwards, whatever you want to finish up with it real quick, that you can share with that you want to share with our Facebook audience and live Zoom audience, however, you can share that real fast.
Okay. All right. So the one thing I say that we have to use is our actual voice. That's actually first. And I'm gonna tell y'all a quick little story, something that actually changed my entire life.
Yeah,
Before I walked away, seriously. Before I walked away from corporate America back in 2010, a Vietnamese guy, I was at a wedding, and I asked a question. I said, "Hey, why do all these particular stores have all these little things like tips?" And he said, "I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but we have something within our community that your actual race cannot do." And I was like, "What's that?" He said, "Y'all don't know how to work together. If this particular store has an actual something actually going on with their actual street, or something like a crack in actual city is coming after them, everybody puts their money together, everybody puts their thoughts together on a particular night, and that particular person can get that particular crack fixed."
Like a susu.
Right. I sat back and I thought about that, and it's I think one of our biggest problems in the Black community is we do not work together, and that's all I got to say. And we just got to do better.
Okay, so that's how you're gonna end it for you?
Yep, that's it.
Derek, go ahead and take a few minutes and You know, whatever you want to share, you know, quickly, maybe 2-3 minutes, whatever you want to share to end your thought process here.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the dialogue and conversation. And I think one of the things we have to really look at is how do we change the narrative? You know, and part of that change of the narrative, as we heard, sometimes you have to speak truth to power. Sometimes you have to continue to acknowledge and lift up those things, even when it's hard. But more importantly, you have to have the courage and bravery to step up when right is right, as wrong is wrong, and understand it may come at a cost. And I think one of the things I begin to look at is I can't legislate anybody's heart, but I can monitor your footsteps. And so sometimes we like to pass judgment about what somebody's doing and without doing without even asking them. And it's one thing for people to tell you what they're going to do, but it's another thing for you to see a demonstration of it. And so I'm looking for the demonstration. And so I think that keeps me out of the cloud. It keeps me from assuming anything. When people say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm actually, how I'm engaged, and how my boots are on the ground. And I think everybody has a right to have their own story and tell their own story in their own way. And I think if we continue to empower and allow people to use their voice in their own way to tell their own story, we have to share power. We have to be able to share power in a way that allows people to really become their own people. And I think more importantly, we have to, at the end of the day, think about the things that happen with us as it relates of what motivates in our why. And utilizing our why as a way to allow us to continue to unite us to move forward and move together. But I think we've said it here. As men of color, we have to look at how we can organize and come together to develop a strategic plan, an action plan, understand what our role in it, but more importantly, utilize our resources collectively to move the agenda forward. And then determine which piece of that agenda we will own and move in a way that we can move it, and understanding that our way is not the same way as everybody else. And then also we have to be encouraging and supportive of one another. And at the same time, be mindful of how we check in and care for one another as we continue to go through this. Because as men, we hurt. As men, we need encouragement, we need support. And sometimes we need people just to check in on us to make sure we're okay. And so I think that's just a demonstration of the love that we should have for each and everybody while we continue to do the hard work and move things forward.
Wow. You've heard Derek Anderson, the ED, Executive Director of Race Matters for Juvenile Justice out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I hope you got some nuggets from that. Let's go with Tuck real quick.
Real quick, man, you know, let's work together, let's love each other. Listen, man, put God first. All right. And listen, we're here for each other. One thing that was not talked about was mental health. Listen, mental health is real.
That's coming.
Mental health is real. So let's support each other, man. Ruth.
You heard Terrence Tucker, the brother who is the president and founder of the Tuck Project out of Columbia, South Carolina, but he works all over the place. Columbia, Augusta, the brother's everywhere. So check out Terrence Tucker. Reverend Ross Lee, let's go, my brother.
I think American racism is here to stay. I think it exists in different forms. And to put it crudely, I think there are at least two levels of it. There are people who really don't believe in the inferiority of Black people, but they manipulate people who actually do believe in it, who are uneducated, ignorant, whatever. And those people actually do, and that's what we have in Donald Trump. Lyndon Johnson said a long time ago, if you can make the worst white man believe he's better than the best Black man, you can pick his pocket every time. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He's picking white people's pockets and bringing them to these rallies. These tax cuts ain't got nothing to do with them. It has to do with the one percenters. I think, therefore, because racism is here to stay, that Black people have to figure out ways in which we can avoid, in which we can defend, and in ways in which we can lessen, in ways in which we can depend upon ourselves even more. Again, from a very Christian perspective, Christianity at its very core is about community. One of the first things that Jesus did before starting his ministry was he gathered his disciples together. Most people see that as gathering 12 people. He began to build a community. That community from those 12 grew and grew and grew until the Great Commission go out and, to the whole world, which is the world community. Christianity is communal, and we need to start learning how to be communal in our own practices of our faith and within our community, and stop focusing on this materialistic blessings and you scream and yell in church and you're going to get a blessing. This mega church stuff is teaching us and telling us, and we need to start working together and helping one another in very practical ways, building businesses, supporting those businesses, protecting one another, and things like that. I'm done.
Man, you heard the Reverend Ross Lee, Samuel Ross Lee, the pastor of Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church out of New Haven, Connecticut. I know I got New Haven, Connecticut folks listening because my sisters live in New Haven, Connecticut. My family, y'all visit this brother. This brother is one of the most dynamic brothers. I check out a couple of sermons too. So you want to hear this. You want to hear some great liberation theology, not oppressive theology, because there's oppressive theology out there still, I believe it. So we want a liberation theology where we can be liberated. So, Chevron, I'm going to save you for last to bring the rear up, brother. Kareem, you went. Chevron, let's go, brother.
Let me just first say, I do not buy the myth that Black people do not want to be united. I do not buy the myth that Black people are not united. I think that Black people are united in certain areas. For example, we have the greatest spending power of any race.
Right. Chevron, you still there, right? Excuse me. Chevron. So if Chevron come back on before we leave, I want to hear what this brother got to say. He's entitled to his opinion, right? So, look, man, I appreciate you all. Not sure why Chevron got cut off, but he said he was traveling, so I know he's traveling. I really appreciate you all having this dialogue. And I want to finish with this. Just the other day, Chevron, you back on? Just the other day, I was in my own neighborhood, right? I was in my own neighborhood just the other day, and I came in the neighborhood, and I observed this white guy who was looking at this fence, and a lot of people didn't, my family members, friends, some people didn't like the way I handled it, but it's the way I handled it, right? I saw this white guy looking through this person's fence, and I kept going, and God was speaking to me, and I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna back up. I backed up, and I know the man didn't stay there because I saw the guy that lived there before cutting his grass, and you can tell the man didn't live there because he was trying to see what is in this man's fence. So I took the audacity of leadership per se, and I said, hey, you know what? If that was me looking in that fence right there as an African American man, if I was stooping down looking in that fence like you was doing, you would stop and call the police on me, and you might hold me at bay with gunpoint. And that went as far as say you would probably call the Klansmen out there just to make sure that I'm held at gunpoint so I won't get away, because you was going to pin me as a thug or a thief, right? But I didn't do the same thing to you because I knew exactly what you was doing, But I was just trying to make him aware of his actions, that if it was me, I want you to think about that next time that, when you see a brother or you see an African American, when you see us, we don't want your kids. You don't have to pull your kids close to you when we walk by you. I don't want your purse. I don't want to break in your car. Not all of us are doing that, right? However, don't make assumptions and judgments that can cost somebody their life. You know what I'm saying? Don't make assumptions and judgments. So, Chevron, are you back on or no?
Yeah, man. I'm sorry about that, man. My phone about to die.
That's okay. Look, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, bro. You got 2 minutes. Go.
Okay, good. Well, what I was saying was that I think we have to get to a point as a people from us actually developing.
Chevron, you're breaking up bad, brother. Okay, look, man, I really appreciate y'all so much. Derek Anderson, Kareem Abdullah, Reverend Ross Lee, Terrence Tucker, Chevron Scott, you still there? Because I can hear you trying to talk. I really appreciate you. I'm sorry. about the conversation. It's a frank conversation. I hope that you're out there, you're listening to us, and you're having those frank conversations with your neighbor, because we stay in diverse communities. I stay in a diverse community. One of my neighbors don't even speak to me. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. I wave. He don't even speak. So, you know, it's kind of disheartening that you want to speak to somebody every day. Let's keep it 100, right? But I really appreciate the conversation that we had today. I know some brothers out there and some people out there say, no, man, we need the Black Panther Party. If you're that person right now, if you're that person, call me, JMS Ministries 44@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. Let's bring it on. Let's get it on the air. Let's hear what you got to say. Because I know it's people that say it right now, you know, marching not working. But you know what? I get that. Marching may not be working, but I think we need all kind of fronts. We need people marching. We need people making because everybody can't be docile. Let's keep it 100. Everybody can't be docile in this situation. So we need people marching. We need people and making laws. We need people educating folks about civil rights, educating folks about racism, discrimination, prejudice. We need it all. We need everybody. We need boots on the ground in different ways, as Reverend Ross Lee said here. So you heard the brothers. If you got any questions, hit me up so we can. I'm sure these brothers will answer anything that they said on here. They'll stick behind anything that they said. They're not afraid. So we're not afraid of the system. Let's just keep it 100. So we want you all to be educated. We want to bring it to the table. Also, next week, look out for my sisters. I'm not leaving you out because everybody's asking me what happened to the sisters in this conversation. Well, this wasn't about you today. I love you, but it wasn't about you all today. It was about my brothers first. And I got you all next week, I promise. We're going to have pastors on. We're going to have a dialogue when we bring brothers and sisters of different nationality on. That's going to be a great conversation, and it's going to be, you know, eye-opening because I want to really hear their perspective, and I want them to be safe and honest on here, and there's no judgment, and it is what it is. Kareem Abdullah, Reverend Ross Lee, Derek Anderson, Brother Terrence Tucker, and Chevron T. Scott, our practicing attorney. Brothers, I appreciate, I love you. Thank you for your time and patience with this. You know, I'm looking forward to carrying on the conversation, not just here, that we do something a little further than just a conversation, Reverend Ross Lee, that we actually put our, and I'm gonna call it out, we actually put our Harvards and Yales, our master's degree, our master's in social work degrees, our MBAs, our JDs, we put all this together. Masters in rehabilitation. I'm just calling out because these brothers are educated also. They're not just brothers that just chilling anywhere. These brothers are busy. So thank you for what you're doing in your community. Thank you for what you're doing in your churches. Thank you for what you're doing in your business to change the scope of how they see African-American businessmen in the context. I really appreciate what you all are doing, and I love you all to the utmost. Until then, what's really going on? What's really going on? So bless you all. I give you all a call, man. I love you, bro. Hey, so check us out next week as we do the same thing. We're gonna be here next week, same time. I'm looking for sisters. Inbox me, and we're coming on. This is JMS Ministries. You've heard what's going on. Thank you all so much for watching.
All right, Johnny. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
for having us.
Johnny, can you stay on for a second?
Yes.